Welcome to Life Unpacked with Mel Ryan and our new series, Life Bombs. This is a series about the moments that change everything, the moments that shatter the life we thought we were living and force us to see ourselves differently. Across 9 real stories, we unpack the truth behind grief, abuse, addiction, affairs, miscarriage, loss, love and joy, and everything in between. These conversations are honest, raw, and unedited, because life is unedited. Each episode invites you to look at your own story with more compassion and less judgment, to notice the patterns that you've been repeating, to understand what you've been working on your whole life, and to finally say, I've got me. If you're ready to hear real stories, to grow with others, and to see yourself more clearly than ever before, this series is for you. This is Life Bombs. This is Life Unpacked with Mel Ryan. Welcome back to Life Unpacked with Mel. This podcast is deeply personal for me. This episode is about understanding the story of grief, how it weaves itself through our lives, our relationships, and our sense of self, often long before we realize it's there. Maddi's story is one of grief, love, loss, and the invisible threads that bind our lives together in ways we don't always understand at the time. Maddi's story has been shaped by grief in many forms. It's layered, tender, and deeply human. Not just one moment, but a series of losses. Grief became a constant companion in her life that quietly rewrote how she saw herself, who she became, and how she learnt to move through the world. What makes this podcast especially meaningful is that our stories intersect. Maddi was profoundly impacted by the loss of her childhood friend and my own daughter. And in listening to her story, you will also hear parts of mine. Not as a retelling, but as an echo, a shared grief, a shared remembering, and a shared love. This podcast is about how our souls bring us together through shared loss, love, and meaning. It's about how grief doesn't just take, it teaches and it reveals. And when we allow ourselves to unpack it, it can reconnect us to parts of ourselves we didn't know were missing. What makes this episode so powerful is not just what Maddi has been through, but how she reflects on it now. You'll hear what happens when grief is no longer something we try to get over, but something we learn to understand and even honor as part of our story. Before we begin, I want to offer a gentle trigger warning. This episode contains discussion around grief, loss, and emotionally charged life experiences. You may find yourself having strong emotional responses as you listen. If that happens, please remember that reaction is about your story meeting Maddi's story. There's no right or wrong way to feel here. Please support yourself in whatever way you need as you listen. As always with Life Unpacked, this is a judgment-free space. There's no hierarchy of pain, no comparison of loss, only the understanding that every story makes sense when we take the time to truly see it. Maddi shares her story with courage, honesty, and deep self-awareness. And in doing so, she invites you to reflect on your own, the grief you carry, the meaning it holds, and what it may still be trying to show you. It reminds us that grief doesn't follow a timeline, and healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning how to carry love differently. This is Maddi's story. Welcome to Life Unpacked with Mel Ryan. Today I have the beautiful Maddi, and we are going to unpack a little bit of Maddi's story. Hi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I've been dying to do a podcast with you. And it's interesting because we have a story that goes way back before I even started doing all of this. In doing these podcasts, and it's a beautiful story that we share. And even as I was sitting down and I had a little bit of a chance to write some notes just before you jumped on, I was like, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes because, of course, your story is half of my story. So sharing the truth with people, we're really now unpacking stuff. But this for me is really presenting and showing the truth of being authentic and who we are. So I'm kind of even more excited to share that space with you because it's been something that I think we kind of helped each other through a lot in both of our lifetimes.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think let's go back to the question I ask everyone because we're getting a picture of where you fit in your family and all of that. So what's your position in the family? Like eldest?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest sibling
Yeah. What's the age gap?
at 5 years.
5. So your sister's minus 5 years younger than you. Yeah. Like I know this, but not. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't actually. Plus, we need to tell everyone else. So this is why we
Yeah.
do it. So we met, you were the first baby I met that I ever practiced on being a mum with in my entire life. So this is my story with you. Your mum was a neighbour of mine and I was probably 20, maybe 21. What year were you born? What year were you born?
1991.
91. So I was 21 because so when I was 21 years old, you were born and I met you shortly after that. And I practiced all of the things on you because I had no idea what I was doing. So grateful for that.
Tried
And
out
your
all the
mum,
things.
oh, absolutely. And your mum to me she was such a beautiful, and you come from such a beautiful line and such a strong, divine woman she was in my life at that time of nurturing and caring and just beautiful mother energy. And so I was looking at that time to find the space to be able to reflect what that would be for me. And so I used a lot of your mum's skills, not probably used, absorbed, watched how she loved you, watched how she connected with you, watched how she wasn't afraid, watched how it was fun and the joy that you brought her in so many ways. And so that opened the door up for me to be that version of the mum that I wanted to be as well. So that's, I suppose, my kind of story in getting to know you when you were really little. And then
Yeah.
I'll hand over to you to what you remember because it'll be a little bit different.
I mean, I suppose a lot of my early memories would come from the stories I was told. That you and Paul would steal me and, wrap me in toilet paper and, I was a mummy and things like that. And, going forward, I think, and it was only something that I learnt recently, was that Goomba came from what my mum used to call me and then became Danielle's name, your
Okay.
first daughter, it came from me, but it stuck with her.
Yeah, absolutely stuck with her.
And still to this day.
Yeah. And we all
Yeah.
called, she became the Goomba fairy in the end,
Yeah.
which to everyone by.
And I think
Yes.
that's, really beautiful. But mum was like, I don't even know where that name came from. We just used to call you Goomba Bear. And then when Danielle came along, she became Goomba. And it's just sort of carried on. So it's been a really beautiful link.
Yeah.
Between Danielle and I. And I suppose, I mean, it's hard to talk about because I feel like my earliest memories with Danielle actually come from after she was gone.
Totally get
Because
that.
I feel like I had already been through loss, that anything before that, it was stories I was told rather than my own memories if I reflect back.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the first thing I kind of wrote down after the birthing was there's a big thread in your life about grief. And not just the grief that I talk about in Life Bombs where, say, your dad might leave or you had to move, which is also part of your story.
Yeah.
But grief unexplainable grief as a child where what is normal and what is safe absolutely is destroyed. And it happens more than once. So for me, rather than explaining this story in the facts of what happened from my perspective in this way, it's seeing you as the little child that you were, the experience that you went through, because when we're unpacking you, that's important. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
we get to have the perspective of how would you feel at that age? And that's when we bring that in as an audience, we can see how that shapes us moving forward when we go through life. So the first grief experience that you had, how old were you?
I was 6 when Shani passed away.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell that story? Do you want you to tell that story?
I'm happy for you to talk about it because I feel like a lot of the story is things that I've been told, not what I remember.
And agreed, yes. So the facts for people listening in that story was when you were 6 years old. When did you move? Because you'd moved just before that. Is that correct?
I think we moved, I think I was 4. I think I did 1 year of kinder and then we moved out to Greensborough for Dad's work.
And the most beautiful thing is the bond that you can create with a child, which again, there's 2 kids in this story that we're about to talk about, from 0 to 4 years old is like, which is so incredible, to the point that I celebrated your wedding with you earlier this year, and it was such a joyous occasion for all of us. But in going back to 4 years old, you moved, and it was heartbreaking for all of us in so many ways, because it was like the village, and you create the village that looks after each other's children. It was this little, but you would just pop into my house all the time. So there's so much change already for you on what was safe and stable, yes, had begun to change anyway.
Yeah.
So you moved over to Greensborough, whole new kinder, whole new people, whole new environment. Your sister had just been born. Oh, no, your sister hadn't been born. She was born
the following year.
Which is, again,
after we moved.
Change. Because when you have a sibling at 5 years old, there's a real displacement. When you have a sibling at 1, there's a part of you that kind of just tucks them in and that they're there. And it's competitive, but you become more twin-like and more, you compete like puppies, like trying to see who wins. But when there's a distance of, say, 5 years, there's a responsibility that comes from you. But you move from being that team, you don't make a team quite so young. You do, obviously, as you may agree with later in life, but in the early years, it's almost like you get displaced and your parents get this child and you're the school child.
Yeah, and I mean, when I talk, about Cass, I sort of say, like, apart from my mum, she was like the first love of my life.
Yeah.
We had such a special relationship, and being a bit older, I could be more responsible. I remember friends would come over and they'd get the doll in the pram and I'd get to put Cassidy in the pram, and I got the real baby. So I feel like, especially like
you. It wasn't the displacement. You got a baby. Your mum gave you a baby.
Yeah, I've always been extremely maternal, and I feel like it started with Cassidy.
Oh, yeah, that makes so much sense to me. Because I, again, remembering with Danielle when you were little, it was the same kind of feeling that you had. You didn't come to see me. So if we did actually go through the video to watch all of your memories, your eyes would never have been on us. Your eyes would have only been on her. Like, you came to see your little best friend that was a baby or a little toddler running around, and your memories would tell me nothing that we did apart from, as you said, the stories that you've been told. So in reframing that actually really makes sense, that the experience of having your sister for you was a real bonding, maternal gathering, almost a safe experience that I have a person type
and
thing.
I do wonder if that would have been different had I experienced the loss of Shani and Danielle before Cassidy was born. Because I feel like I hadn't really, apart from moving, which I don't now see as a trauma moment, or, you're so young, you don't understand, you're just moving. But like you said, it's that loss of that village. I still, and, to this day, still feel so connected to you that it wasn't a loss. And because I had Danielle and Shani, they were the babies born after me, and all the beautiful stories that I've been told since about being the only one that could make Danielle laugh, and those really special moments that I've been able to hold on to. Cassidy coming before I had gone through any of that loss really did, I think, change our relationship, or change the way that I viewed becoming a big sister because I'd had these babies to play with, but they weren't mine. And then all of a sudden I had Cassidy and she was all mine.
That makes so much sense. I love that. Yeah. It's that real ownership of a partnership, like that connection. Yeah. So it really feels solid. I love that. It makes sense. So for anyone at home, there was a group of us and there was 3 couples. And so there were 3 kids. You were the eldest. And then there was the next baby was Shani. And then there was Danielle, our daughter. And so you were 3 little peas in a pod that used to hang out and play together all of the time. And so going back to the first experience of grief for you when you were 6 years old, Rick and Shani were killed in a head-on car accident and passed away, and their mum lived through that. And so that was the first experience for you trying to get your head around the fact that someone's here one day at 6 years old and someone's not here the next day.
Yeah.
And then it was 15 months to the day after that Danielle then had an asthma attack, our daughter, and you and her had been super connected, particularly since then, because it bonded you two more. And so you were, how old were you then?
Just before
8?
I turned 8.
Yeah, nearly 8. And so 8 is around grade 2. So you've gone to primary school trying to connect with friends. And then lo and behold, your other friend that you'd known your whole life, you get told that she's also passed away. And so for you looking back now, do you think can you see the impact that potentially had for you as a child in that time?
Oh, huge. I still remember, my parents had got me to see the school psychologist after Shani had passed away. So I was 6 and I was still seeing him when Danielle passed away. And I remember a comment I said to him, and it was, I'll never ever make a friend ever again because everyone I get close to just dies.
Wow.
And that's massive for an 8-year-old to say, that it's like there was, and we've talked about it, in recent times, it was like this survivor guilt. Why me? Why am I the one still here? I couldn't quite comprehend, the 3 of us that had spent our start of our lives together, all of a sudden 2 out of 3 were gone, but it wasn't me.
Yep. And there's no one on the planet that can actually have a conversation with you, particularly 8 years old, that is going to make that make sense.
No.
So you have to just kind of tuck it in and keep going, including a counselor. You can't put that into a perspective where you go, okay, that makes sense. Well, thanks. I can live with a free feeling that there's the complications that come from this situation are all entwining. They're always going to be there.
Yeah, and I suppose my first memories now that I have are seeing them in the lights and seeing them having them take me in my dreams, on adventures as an 8-year-old girl. Even now, sometimes you wake up from a dream and it feels so real. I remember leaving my body, it was like flying in Peter Pan, with Shani on one side and Danielle on the other. They're sort of the memories that I can remember now looking back as an adult, sitting in the toilet and looking up in the light and being like, oh, they're just there. It didn't sort of feel like they had gone. But they weren't on this earth anymore.
Yes, but then you can't even have the conversation to explain that because people hold their space of, well, they've died or they've passed away, and so you've got nowhere to go.
And I know because Mum, again, I've been told they didn't take me to the funeral to either Shani or Danielle, and it was because they didn't know how to deal with me being somewhere like that, and they were in their own grief, going to now a second funeral of a friend whose child, and so they were sort of trying to protect me, but then I had this feeling of missing out and not getting to say a goodbye. And what does that look like at 8 years old? I'm not sure, but you have those decisions made for you, but you're not sure of what's going to happen after or how you're going to feel afterwards.
Correct. And I think, as you and I know in so many conversations that we've had and so many more people are now moving through embracing grief and being able to have no answer in it. And so there is no right or wrong. But the further back we go, the more rules that was attached with different things, and the more we tried to do the right thing without people knowing what the right thing was. And so I think that still exists for some people too now, going, I don't know if I should bring my child to the funeral or not, which again is a conversation that people get to do themselves. But we underestimate the power of closure that kids need as well in all of that, or awareness or understanding, or being able to recognize that, as we need to recognize, because we don't grieve well at all, that it's a transition and our relationship with it, how we knew it, is now going to be different.
And I suppose it's also like reconnecting with that village that I had lost when we moved, was, being a part of that village and being in that together, being in the sad moments, the happy moments, and not being able to be in that, even though I didn't necessarily understand. But you know how much I love you, and like to have been there. I don't know. It's a lot of the time it's for the people that are still here.
Yeah, totally. Because we connect in a different way. Again, we're forever changed after you lose someone you love. And the closer they are to you, the deeper the change and the more support I think you need in it to hold the space for you while you just work out who the fuck you are now, because everything's totally different. And we have to be allowed for all the people to take different roles in that, because we don't know who are the ones that are going to potentially fill the little gaps that we need filled at the time that we don't know. And I think you have been a big part of that for me in over our time together, in just hanging out in conversations and trying to work out life and laughing and staying up till sometimes 3 a.m.
Drinking champagne
having
on
conversations.
Danielle's anniversary.
And that's the beautiful part of grief, that it is evolving, it evolves, and it brings up different questions in different times. And I remember there was a time recently, and I'm probably fast forwarding, and maybe we'll come back to how you cope with school and friends. And actually, let's do that now. It's like, for you, that conversation that you had with the counselor, I don't want to have another friend again in case my friend dies. Do you think that was a thread that came through that affected your connecting properly with relationships?
Yeah, but I think similar to like my stuff with my sister, and sort of having the flip side of not feeling that displacement but feeling more of the ownership, is my friendships became extremely intense and extremely important to me. So from a little girl still to today, I pour everything into my friendship. And, I'm extremely generous in friendships. I'm always there. And I think it was like, although I had said that, that didn't actually transpire. I didn't isolate myself because I'm an extremely social person. I actually almost went the opposite and had these really amazing friendships that maybe I put in too much sometimes and didn't get much back.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, for me, in hearing what you're saying, it's almost going to the point that while the thread is someone might leave me, the fear of someone might leave you, then turns us into overgivers.
Yeah.
And then we abandon the fact that we have a need or we have a boundary, and we're going to give in a way that we make sure that they're looked after and they're okay, which when you step out, which is such an important part, and you look, it can be totally exhausting when we're continuously making sure that we've looked after everyone else. So again, if we go back in the thread in your life, being the eldest, because you were the eldest in this little group, and so there was a gap how many years between you and Shani? You were 2 years older?
I think there was 2, yeah.
And then there was 3.
4. Well, did Danny turn the 4 in the July?
Yes.
And then I turned 8 in the March. So 3.5.
Yeah. So for that, you've always taken the responsible role And then you're the big sister, so you take the responsible role. So then with your friends, you almost take the responsible role that your friendship's going to stay because you're going to make sure it stays.
Yeah.
And then in the family, I even know, spending a little bit of time with you this year, there's the responsible role of everything was organized for everyone to the point it was exhausting.
Yeah.
Potentially, if I'm allowed to say that, to make sure that everyone felt safe and looked after.
Definitely
And
not potentially, definitely exhausting.
so it's seeing the threads to go, wow, how can I support myself better? Because these, I was going to say beautiful experiences, and they're not always beautiful, as we know, but our experiences imprint on us. And they then create versions of us that we become the way we are because we're trying to make sure that unconsciously no one leaves or everyone feels safe or everyone's looked after. And for you also being responsible, and correct me if I'm wrong because it's a totally different thread, but when people die, we're really out of control. Like we can't control life. And so the more we feel like we can control things, unconsciously the safer we feel. Even though underneath we know that there's not a frigging chance that we can control life when life has its plan.
My husband would say different. He would say that I can control life.
Right.
Or I control his life.
But can you see why that would be a thing for
Yeah.
you? Yeah. Because it's so safe for you to make sure that. And if something adjusts, someone comes in and a plan is adjusted or something happens or something is pear-shaped, is that a real conscious way for you to try and support yourself in the moment that happens?
Yeah. Yeah, I struggle when things change, although I do feel like I've become more aware and I've done so much more work on myself that I have become far more adaptable when things do change. I've sort of had to sort of drop a lot of that control because of, and we'll go into it, but the other things that have happened in my life since being a little girl, you realize, you're pretty much not in control
Of
of
anything.
life. Yeah.
I think that's one of the most freeing things for me when Danielle died, was knowing that not being able to control things actually gave me a freedom to give up trying to control anything. And that came about as well when I found out that I was pregnant a few months after she was passed away, which also shouldn't have happened. And so life takes you on that journey. And so that real double impact of life dishing up plan B and C and D and E for me in an enormous way, I just wanted to go back and try and control everything. And it was almost comical because the more I tried to control it, the more it just was like trying to hold water in your hands, to the point that it made me meet trust. And I talk about trust a lot, but it made me meet trust in the big picture, in my soul self, in the higher plan. Not that I liked it, don't get me wrong, did not like it, but also freed me to not control it, which for me totally changed my life in so many ways, to be able to hold the space to find the step out with so many other people. And I think we've done that a lot in working together to try and find, even though we don't like the story, the impact that it had on you is part of your story, and how you support yourself moving forward is absolutely helping us be the version of us that we want to be, rather than the version that is scared or that feels like people are going to leave or that has to control things. It's being able to tuck the version in that goes, wow, I was just about to lose my mind, but you know what? I can breathe, or I can adjust, or I can go through that.
And when you've been the responsible one, and the people pleaser, it's also like freeing when you let go of the expectation of others. And I feel like that's where I am headed now, is I've dropped the expectation of others because I don't care. Like, what you expect of me is not my responsibility, it's yours. And I think had I not gone through all of this, I wouldn't have got to that place of letting go of control. But yeah, it wasn't easy getting there.
Well, and let me know if you don't want to go there, but your grief story just didn't end there.
No.
With the girls, it's continued. It's like that thread in your life. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because in supporting you supporting yourself in that real, that connection with wanting to be a mum and finding that that's your calling and that's where you feel the most at home, and then that was taken away from you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because that I think is the catalyst in the I'm not going to hold expectations on myself. I'm going to honor myself to live how I need to live.
Yeah. And I suppose that story really starts with meeting Ollie, my now husband, because we met during COVID. We talked for months before we met in person because we were in lockdown. And then 2 months into our relationship, I was on a girls' trip in Byron Bay, questioned whether I should take my white bikinis because I was due for my bleed. And every day we'd get up and the girls would go, "Has your period started yet?" And I'd be like, "No, can wear the white bathers again." And lo and behold, I got home and freshly 2 months into our relationship, we fell pregnant. And I wasn't young. I was 29, I think, when we first fell pregnant. And I'd always wanted to be a mum. Never had a pregnancy scare in all my life. Now I was 7 weeks pregnant and none the wiser until obviously my period didn't come, and my husband and I sat down and we talked about it, and he was like, "I'm just not ready for this." And in my heart of hearts, I knew that I could do it, but it was the first time I realized I didn't just want a baby. I wanted a family, because going back to that thread of loss and grief, the same year that we lost Danielle, my mum and dad separated. So it was sort of like realizing that just having a baby wasn't exactly what I wanted. I wanted a family.
It's the feeling and it's the whole connection. It's the whole picture. And it's not, in this, I talk about the Disney picture. It's not the Disney picture. It's the real relationships and the authentic support in being able to meet each other to do life. We talk a lot about meeting in the middle in relationships, and that's something you guys have worked really hard on. And it's creating a connection that's so real that it helps you show up for yourself because you're also showing up for someone else properly. I just kind of want to put that in.
And I think when we sort of sat down and had that conversation about like, what are we going to do? I mean, I have such a fear of needles. I always have. And like to think of having to go through a termination and having injections. And I didn't even want a blood test to check that I was pregnant. I was like, nope, I've peed on a stick. I don't need to confirm that. Like, I'm pregnant. Don't worry about that. And that's not always the way in the medical industry. You know, you have to confirm things. And I think that probably was maybe more daunting, and that was probably where my focus laid more so, rather than actually terminating a pregnancy after we'd made a soul contract with this soul that had decided to land, and we were deciding that we weren't ready. And I think it was really hard being the one that was ready and then having to realize and, say to Ollie, I'm choosing you. I'm actually choosing our relationship, because I think you're the one for me. I think this is it for me. But I don't want to do something that's going to jeopardize that or going to put you in an uncomfortable position where you resent me for a choice that I made that wasn't ours. And that was really tough to then have to go through that because I so wanted to be a mum.
Yeah. And you're trying to support you, but you're also supporting him, and then they're the opposite magnets in that place at that time.
Yeah. So that's sort of, I suppose, where that sort of starts. And then fast forward 2 years, we got engaged down in Phillip Island. And I think one of the first things I said to him was, "Oh my God, does that mean you want to have a baby with me?" Because again, it was that hyper fixation of like, I just want to be a mum. I'm getting older. Like, let's do this. Let's like move this along. And falling pregnant very, early in our relationship. The thread, or I suppose the common thread in our family is we are extremely fertile women. There's never been any pregnancy issues. So mum's always said to us, you have to be very careful. Obviously we weren't. That's how we ended up where we were. And then, it's 2 years ago now. So I was 32 and, I specifically said to Ollie, we're going to try for a baby in June. Because I really wanted a Pisces baby. I really wanted a Pisces like me. because we're super dependent.
Reliable, not controlling anything at all.
No, controlling everything in my life. I'm having this water baby. Like, this has got to be it. So after a month of trying, we did fall pregnant very quickly again. And it was like the best moment of my life. You know, it was telling, you know, him, telling my family. We took a video because my dad and his partner were down, and my mum and, you know, her partner were here, and my sister was on the phone because she was overseas, and we did the whole, like, you know, say Maddie's pregnant, and, you know, the excitement was just enormous.
Yeah.
We were 5 weeks along. We just couldn't wait to tell anybody. And then that was short-lived. So I think I was about 8 weeks pregnant, and I started spotting, and, you know, I sort of thought, I feel okay. Like, you know, I think it's going to be okay, you know, trying to talk myself into it, and that I was, you know, all okay. And then I sort of text my midwives, because we had hired private midwives, and we'd been through the process of interviewing them before we'd even decided about having a baby. And so I text them, and she's like, send me a photo. And pretty much she just sort of said, I think you're having a miscarriage. And that moment was devastating. You know, I tried to do everything. I was like, pray to the higher self, pray to the universe, like everything's going to be okay. You know, like I've got to stop this somehow from happening. I would have done anything in that moment to stop what happened. So then, you know, I started losing clots, and Ollie came home, and it was really odd because he came home. I was already at that point quite hysterical, and he says, I think I've hit a cat on the way home. Oh my God, what do you mean? Like, and I'm like, did you stop to look? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, we have to go back. Like, you know, you can't just leave a cat injured on the side of the road. So we grabbed the dog and we went for a walk, and I started to have, like, well, what I now know were contractions, but at the time I just thought it was cramping, and I had to keep stopping, sort of just breathing, kept walking. Anyway, there was no cat, so he didn't hit a cat, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But then we got home, and I pretty much went into like a mini labor. You know, I was bleeding very heavily. I passed what I suppose they would call the sac. Yeah. And I remember I was really focused just on the process. I was like, again, like, can I control this? Like, I've got to control my breathing. Like, I'm in pain. I feel sick. Like, I'm sweating. And I passed, and I just couldn't bring myself to flush it. I was like, this is just not okay for me. So we got into bed, and we laid there for 45 minutes, and I'd had Poppy at that stage for 13 years. She never left my side. But in that moment, pardon?
Poppy's your dog, just letting people
Poppy
know.
was our dog. And I remember she just stayed out on the couch, and Ollie and I were sort of just, you know, he was sort of spooning me in bed, and we were just laying there, and I was just crying, and I thought it was really weird that she hadn't come in. And then I sort of like felt like I was wetting myself, and I jumped out of bed, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, and then I went to go to the toilet, but I hadn't flushed the toilet, and I was like, quick, get a spoon. Like, it was, like you sort of said, almost comical. Like, it was ridiculous what we were trying to do. And I'm like, get a spoon, like, I need to get it out. And anyway, I managed to get my clothes off and jump straight in. We had like a bath shower. Well, I can't even describe what left my body in that moment. Like, it was horrific. It clots the size of dinner plates. And there's my fiance at the time standing there with a plastic bag as I'm fishing them out of the bath because they're too big to go down, you know, the sink. And again, like, the plug. And again, I'm sort of standing there, and I'm literally laughing, and I'm saying to him, like, what the actual fuck? Like, I've just laid in bed beside myself, and now I'm standing here literally like gushing blood, and I'm laughing, being like, this is ridiculous. And yeah, so it was crazy. And
watching yourself go through that grief process, because it is almost hysterical, which has those moments that don't make sense.
Yeah. And then obviously, like, I'm very close with my mum and told my mum, and we took 2 days to come out here. I remember my girlfriends turned up the next day at my house with pajamas and crystals, and they'd made me vegetable soup and gnocchi and did everything they could. I mean, at the time we were living an hour away from where I'd grown up. So just that effort to come down, and they pretty much just held me while I cried because I couldn't do much else. I couldn't believe I wanted something so bad and then to have it taken away from me. And then we came out to my mum's, and she just wanted to cook for us and do all the things that she could as a mum to care for us. Yeah, and it was hard because, again, like, she couldn't take away from the pain. She couldn't take away from what we were going through in that moment.
And it's literally for you another, it's another layer of grief. Like there's just, it's like another blanket on top of you on a blanket on a blanket, and they're more weighted and deeper and heartfelt and connected. And do you find that it was a very big, even though you've got such beautiful friends and beautiful family, which is a credit to you in you connecting, it means that they connected back to you, which is such a beautiful exchange. But did you still find it super lonely?
Yeah, and I suppose that comes with the next one, like more of that self-reflection. But yeah, I felt like I was going through the greatest loss of my life of something that I'd never actually had.
Was allowed to have. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'd never connect. I suppose when you fall pregnant, you plan every Christmas, every birthday, like it's this loss of this life that you thought you were about to experience before you've even experienced it. So it's,
But you've read,
it's
like you've read the book, you read the chapters, you planned everything out, you've got the whole outline of everything. And for someone to, just throw that out, getting our head around that just doesn't exist. Yeah.
It's like reading the last page of a book and knowing exactly how it's going to end. And then all of a sudden that page is ripped out and you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I messaged my midwives, and we hadn't paid anything because we hadn't reached the 16-week mark. And again, I'd always had a level of distrust in the medical system, and I monitored myself and spoke to them regarding my own care and looking after myself after it and things like that. And they explained to me how long I'd bleed for. And because the other thing that I really realized was I didn't know anybody who had gone through this. I had nobody to talk to in those really early days of going through it. And it wasn't until I started opening up that I started to hear other people say, oh, yeah, like I had a miscarriage before this baby. And I was like, why did I not know? Like, why are we not talking about this? Because this was fucked for me.
Yeah, totally.
And it would have been nice to have someone be like, it's not the same for everyone, but I get it.
Do you know, I tried to work that out a while ago in unpacking miscarriages with so many people. And I remember when Danielle died, my nan, she was the person that I connected to because she'd lost 2 children, 2 boys. And I remember her saying to me, she grabbed me, like it was so forceful. And she said, it's just random, isn't it? And for me, no, this is part of my story. There's a big picture in this. I don't like it. I don't know what it is. Doesn't make sense to me. Don't actually want to do it. But I feel that there has to be something in there that's going to make it make sense. But the way she grabbed me, I had to actually say to her, yes, it's just random, because there was a desperation in her I've never seen before. And I took that with me, and I really sat in that for a long time to try and work out what that was. And she was born in 1925, I think, 1924. When you lost a child then, so her child was 2 when he passed away, and one was 7 when he passed away. But when you lost a child around 2, he had his tonsils out and died in an operation. The whole world in her world, had the narrative that if you lost a child, it was God punishing you. So she couldn't find the connection to be able to even hold the space for herself because she must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
And then not only does she have to deal with that in her grief, she then had to deal with everyone else knowing that.
Mm.
How fucked is that? And
Yeah.
so this is when this thread came through for me, that this is why all the way back then, women stopped confiding in women to talk to them about miscarriages, because it was deemed that if you didn't keep the baby, it was meant to be that way because you were being punished. Please don't think
Yeah.
I agree with any of this on any level. But this is why to this day, we still say, when are you going to tell them? Are you going to wait the 12 weeks? And
Mm-hmm.
yet, who do you need the most? If you go through an experience like that, you need to know you're not going to die emotionally and that someone else survived. Like, we need
Yeah.
women to get better at sharing our stories and our grief and how we don't know how to support ourselves in it, to be able to come back to find a way through whatever that looks like.
Yeah. And that very much came with, I suppose, the next part of the story. But the other thing, and I know we've talked about it quite often, is the fucked things people say. And it's like, at least you can fall pregnant. At least it wasn't a baby yet. And it's like, sometimes saying something isn't better than saying nothing. Say
Correct.
nothing, because that's not helpful. Oh, it's so common. Oh, 1 in 4. And it was like,
You're dismissing
what?
everything I've just been through. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you trying to make me feel better? Because guess what? It's not.
Yeah. It pulls you out. I remember people walking to the other side of the street because they didn't know what to say to me, or some awful comments like, well, I'm glad it was you because if it was me, I would have killed myself by now. I'm like, please stop talking to me.
Yeah.
I just don't, I have nothing for you. Because the inadequacy that we have with grief is we think we have to fix it. Whereas the beautiful, what you said, I'm going to hug you while you cry. I'm just going to hug you while you cry. And how many years later that you still come and can hug me while I cry, or vice versa, because
Yeah.
they're part of the people that we love and we're allowed to go there. And
Or
that's
sometimes we just cry because we're hugging.
right. It just pops out.
Yeah, I know. And I think that was very much like we talked about. Like, I would go to the park and I would hear women talk to me, say, oh, I had 2 miscarriages before I had my sons. And now I look at them and I'm so thankful and I'm so beautiful. And I think, don't fucking talk to me from that place, because I'm not there yet. Talk
Yeah.
to me from the place of being in that moment when you lost that future, because that's what I need. I need you to go, yeah, this is fucked. Yeah, it's painful physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Don't be like, yeah, but then, you get pregnant and then you have these beautiful babies. And I used to think, shut up, enough.
Because it totally dismisses your story in that moment. You're not allowed to have your story or your grief, which means that we have to work out a way we get past it without inconveniencing anyone else by the horrendous pain that we feel. And
Yeah.
that's not, hey, that's not how we're meant to do grief at all.
No. And we struggled with family members saying things like, I'm just really sad at the loss of my grandchild. And I'm thinking, oh my fucking God, like, we've just lost our baby and you're still, like, we're not even talking like random strangers. We're talking about like family members that just couldn't put anyone else in front of themselves, in a sense of being like, I can be empathetic or I can be sympathetic to what you're going through while I'm also sad for you. Or just say, like, I'm really sad for you and for the future that we had all been excited about. Like, yeah,
I can
wild.
hold space for you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
messy. It's just so messy.
The next 30 seconds could change your life. If you want to take the next step to work with Mel, go to Mel Orion 100% you on your Facebook or Instagram and direct message her the word work. From here, Mel's team will help direct you to what you need. You may want to explore at your own pace, or you might be ready to dive right in. No matter where you're at, Mel has the tools and programs in place to help you, support you. Mel Orion 100% you.
Yeah. And I suppose then that leads into the next adventure. We waited until I had 1 cycle, because I didn't go and see the doctors or anything after it. I just assumed I'd had a complete miscarriage. And I was like, you know what? let's wait a cycle, see what happens. So we did that, and I've had my cycle as per normal. I've always been very regular. And then the next month we were like, okay, let's try again. And again, a month later, we fell pregnant, as my mum had always warned, very fertile women in our family. And this time we talked about the loneliness. This time I didn't feel like I could share. I didn't want to tell people because I didn't want to have the conversation if something happened. I remember going to the toilet all the time, like even in the middle of the night with my phone light, looking at my pad or whatever and checking to see if there was blood, or when I'd wipe, I'd check to see if there was blood. Every single time I was highly anxious, highly stressed. I couldn't focus on anything other than, is this going to happen again? Yeah. So we got in contact with the midwives because, again, you've got to book really early, and they were like, yeah, we're here, we're available. I think we were due around July. Yeah, July the following year. So then it was December, the start of December, and I started spotting again. So I was, again, about 8 weeks pregnant, and I thought, oh my God, I'm not going through this again, am I? And then it stopped. And I was like, this is weird. Like, okay, maybe everything's okay. I didn't want to reach out to my midwives because I was, again, too scared of having the conversation again. I was too scared of manifesting that this was happening again. So I was like, again, control it the best I can. Just don't think about it. Don't talk about it. Just, you're pregnant, and that's all you need to worry about. Yeah, run away from the body that I can't escape from. Or run away from the conversations or anything to do with it. Anyway, over that week. Yeah. And then that week I kept having a bit of spotting, and I just turned to Ollie and I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I need to book in for an ultrasound. I need to see what's going on, because we could go there and I could have like a hemorrhage, or I could have everything's fine. The baby could have a heartbeat. Let's just go. It could be implantation bleed. It could be so many things. Let's just go. So we booked an appointment, and we got in there, and they said, how far along do you think you are? And I said, well, from my last cycle, I'd be around 8 weeks. And they're like, okay. And they measured everything, and they sort of said, like, it's only measuring about 5.5 weeks. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, and I'd been generous with time. I was like, there's no way. Anyway, they said, that's okay. Like, come back in a week and we'll see if something's grown or we can get a heartbeat. And I thought, yeah, cool. You just wait a week and then come back and we'll confirm whether you are pregnant or not. Like, it's so clinical.
I went to find this. Yeah, totally. It's like this. I went for an answer of an answer.
Yeah. I've now got more question marks. And it's like, God, that week, don't do anything. Don't do heavy lifting. This pregnancy's got to survive. We actually went down to Phillip Island, and again, I'd stopped bleeding, and I was like, great, can go for a swim. Like, this is the place we got engaged. Let's have a beautiful time. And then I came back, booked another appointment, went in for the appointment, and, you see the face on the sonographer. I just need to check with somebody. And you're like, perfect. I know what you're about to tell me. So then they go and get the senior sonographer. They come back in, and they're like, there's no embryo. So there's just a sac. So the pregnancy sac was visible, but there was nothing inside of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, am I having a miscarriage? Am I going to have a miscarriage in the next couple of days? Like, and they're like, well, you just have to wait. So I got in contact with, I spoke to my mum, and I said to her, I can't do this again. I can't do this again. I spoke to my midwives, and just had the conversation around what potentially was coming, and, I'd been through it before and my options and things like that. And I just thought, nah, this isn't for me. I'm not going to the doctors and taking the termination pills. I don't want to do that. Again, the fear of needles. I'm not going to get a blood test to see if my HCG is rising every couple of days. No thanks. I'll bow out of that. So I suppose I took control of what I could control.
Which is interesting to me, is because in this journey, and I'll pop it in here, but we'll come back to it. To me, again, grief for me, as I was saying earlier, it was my return to trust in this, not life.
Yeah.
And for me, it's almost, even in that moment, you stopped trusting in the process and you began to come back to trust in you. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
your body do what it needs to do. You're disconnecting from what you're told, and you're really, it's that listening back. You can anchor in. You can almost feel it shifting. That power is slowly coming back from the deep, darkest place. You know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to slip that in to see, because I see it unfolding. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. And then so I waited a week, 2 weeks, nothing happened. I'm like, I'm still nauseous. My boobs are really like sensitive. Like, surely I'm not still pregnant. Like, what's going on? Anyway, Christmas Day, I woke up to really heavy bleeding. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have a miscarriage on Christmas Day. Like, perfect. It's exactly what I want for Christmas. We went about our day as usual, visiting my dad's side of the family, visiting my mum's side of the family. I was completely emotional. I walked into my dad's and burst into tears. I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I still attending these things when I'm literally
Ticking the
going
boxes,
through?
right?
Yeah, it's Christmas. Don't be on your own in Christmas. Like, you know, you have to go and see people. Christmas ended, no miscarriage happened. And I thought, okay, this is strange. Like, we're now 3 weeks from when I found out that there was no heartbeat. I don't know what's going on, but we're just going to keep riding it out. It was my mum's 60th in the January. My sister was living in Hamilton Island at the time. We'd organised to take mum to Hamilton Island for her 60th. And I'm thinking, surely by then, you know, I'll have had the miscarriage. No, we board the flight and I'm still, as far as I know, pregnant. And while I was in Hamilton Island, I had a couple of times where I had some spotting and I was like, by this point now, I'm nearly 2 months, like we're the end of January, start of February. I'm now 2 months past finding out that there was no heartbeat and there was no baby. And I'm thinking, surely by now something's got to happen. So then nothing happens in Hamilton Island. We come home from a wonderful holiday away with family. And I just kept saying to my mum, all I want for my birthday is my period. Because at this point, I'm thinking, maybe I've had the miscarriage and I don't know. I hadn't had a bleed other than random intermittent spotting. And I just kept saying, all I want for my birthday is my period. And because I just wanted to start again. I wanted to start trying again. I was like, this is what's important to me, is having a baby. So then we come home from Hamilton Island and, you know, I'm going through, I speak to my midwives again. They're like, has anything happened? We start talking about possibly that my body has actually reabsorbed, you know, the sac is what can happen. And I may not have a miscarriage in the traditional sense that I had the first time. And I, you know, remember walking the dog and thinking, this is all just about teaching me patience, because none of this is on my terms. None of this is in my control. And when I do one day have a baby, I'm going to have to wait to go into labor. I'm going to have to wait 9 months to grow this child. I'm going to have to wait during labor to get through labor. So I'm thinking, this is really teaching me that I have to be patient, and my body knows what it's doing. My body's smarter than I know.
Trusting the process.
Yeah. So my birthday, the 2nd of March, the night before, Mum and I went for a walk, and we actually got into a bit of an argument because my mum had said, after I'd learnt that I'd lost the second pregnancy, my mum had said, you've got this beautiful man standing before you. He wants to marry you. Why don't you stop trying to focus on something you can't control, falling pregnant and having a baby, and focus on something you can control? Start planning this wedding. So I'm like, okay, I'll throw myself in headfirst into planning a wedding. And we started to get into an argument about, she wanted to invite all these friends, and I was like, well, it's not your wedding, you want to invite them, you have a wedding. And anyway, it was a wonderful, relaxing walk. And so we came back home, and I'd had quite a bit of cramping on the walk back, and I thought, maybe I am going to get my period for my birthday. Like, maybe I've really done really well in manifesting this. And I went to bed that night and I didn't feel well, and Ollie wasn't here. He was back at home because I was at my mum's. He was back at home because he had to work the next day, or he had cricket, because my birthday was on the Saturday. Anyway, I woke up in the morning. I still was very crampy. I went to the toilet and I'm sitting on the toilet and I'm like, I think I'm bleeding. And I look down the toilet door and there's just like blood and like what looked like a date. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, again, comical, I don't think I ate any dates. And then I've gone, oh my fucking God, I've just had a miscarriage. And so immediately I'm like, oh my God, like the dog's just followed me into the toilet. She's going to eat it. So I'm like picking it up in tissue. It's 7:00 in the morning on my birthday. Wow. And I'm bleeding. And I'm like, oh my God, I've just had the miscarriage. And so I've run into Mum at 7 a.m. and I'm like, Mum, like I've just had a miscarriage. And I'm holding this like it looked like vascular thing in my hand, completely different to the last time. And telling her, and she's like, oh my God. And so everyone's in panic mode, doesn't know what to do. She's like, do we go to the hospital? I'm like, I don't know what we do. Like, I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I remember that whole time waiting for it to happen and saying about getting my period for my birthday. And I was like, in that moment, and I go back to what you said about feeling alone, I knew that nobody else could do that for me. Nobody could take the pain away. Nobody could take the emotions away. Nobody could take the physical having to lose the pregnancy away from me. Yeah. And I just wanted someone to be like, I'll take the cramps. Someone else, I'll take the bleeding. Someone else, I'll take the crying, and just share it. But I couldn't.
Yeah, you got
and so in that moment, I felt so alone. And then obviously I had to ring Ollie and tell Ollie what had happened, and all that sort of happened. And then I remember months later having a conversation with another family member who hadn't behaved, I suppose, in what I would say was a respectful manner. From our first miscarriage, we had to have a bit of a confrontation about what we'd been through. And it was the first time that Ollie had said, I feel like we're being punished for the termination we made the decision to have. And I was just like my mind just exploded.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, like I'd probably been feeling it.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is that, like, goes back to what your grandmother said. Yes. It's just random, isn't it? Was it random, or were we being punished because of the decision we had made?
Have you shifted that? Did you shift that?
I think we went back to why we did it.
Totally, yeah.
That first time he said that, because he'd never really spoken about it. He's the perfect English gentleman. We don't really talk about emotions. That's changed a lot now, but he'd never I think he never wanted to put that on me. Yeah, and then hearing him say that to someone else, I was like, fuck, like this guy's been going through it. He's been having to hold me up because I'm falling apart.
But the river underneath that thought processes is there for him. It was there.
Yeah. Yep. So, that was, I suppose, that like the going through the miscarriage, that's where I felt really alone. And like you said, with the being punished, like for our choices. So that was really hard and a shit way to celebrate my birthday. What was I, 30, 33? But I suppose, again, I for that second miscarriage, I feel like I took myself out of it. And I know this earth is this is about the human experience. We're on an emotional plane. We have to feel it. And I didn't want to pull myself out in protection of myself, of going, but this is my story. This is what has to happen to me, because I was like, but I also have to feel it. I have to be allowed to be sad. I have to be allowed to grieve the loss. And and feel like it was unfair. Like, why me?
Yeah, exactly that. And not why you I think the are we being punished line. And I remember talking to you extensively about that and on one of our moments. But I think that when we turn around, it comes in to try and make sense of the things that don't make sense. So people bring in you must be being punished because this happened, obviously from the 1920s, to try and make the things not make sense. But what it does to us is it absolutely destroys us in being able to support ourselves, because we then can't find the thread that is, let me explore this in a way that it's going to make sense in my story, or that I can even process any of it from a big picture perspective. So I remember working, I've worked with so many people that have had terminations by choice, terminations from medical emergencies that they've had, situations going on where they've got results back that weren't supportive, and they made that choice. And I really sat with it to try and then make sense of it for me. And this is what I've come up with, and this is what I share with a lot of people. And again, take it or leave it to how people need, but for me, there's say we're going to call it heaven because it just makes it easier. So there's heaven and there's earth, but in the middle, there's this energy field that we get to come to be able to understand, learn, process, explore, do the connections of who we're going to meet to help us understand where we're going to go, which is part of the planning of our story. Because you don't build a house without a plan, you don't have an earth experience without a plan. You just wouldn't.
Mm.
And so for me, sometimes we need soul babies. And a soul baby for me, obviously, is Danielle. And that was someone I met here for a long time, 4.5 years, before she went to this in the middle space. But it helps me then connect to that space because I was looking for something. I'm looking for a connection, an answer to make sense, something. So soul babies are what helps us trust ourselves or the big picture or what we hear or the messages. And I want to touch on that before we finish a little bit, the messages that are so hardcore from her or people that you love. And so for me, in seeing that connection with you, there's soul babies for you that have been, there's 3 soul babies that you have a family up here that somehow are more connected than it would be if we had the nana or the guide or something like that. These were part of your energy body on earth. And I think it pulls us into being able to listen to our soul story or our higher self or our intuition or our something deeper and stronger because it's mum energy. It's huge. As we said, it's so alone when you grieve. That grief is so strong in the love and the bond. It's like an energetic magnet. You can't undo that. And in fact, if you go to any psychic on the planet, they will say to you, wow, you've got this many babies around you or this many souls around you. And they never miss them. And so to me, if we process it from the big picture soul story way, for me, it's why do you need a soul baby? Well, that's really interesting because it must be a way that you need to really connect into listening to yourself on a much deeper level and your intuition and everything else. And yes, obviously not all of us need that. But for people saying that, hey, you must be being punished for a choice you made, that double disconnects us from that. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And we see that I can only hate myself and it's so much judgment. But if you really understand the word judgment doesn't come from our soul self. Judgment only exists on earth. Judgment is only to put each other down so we can't be authentically us.
Yeah.
So it's finding where we process how that is, but it's such a great example because it's so powerful that it kicks us out of being able to connect with who we are. I just really wanted to kind of add that in. And I remember talking to you about finding soul babies and being able to honor that connection, whether it be the candle or the tree or the letter or the burial that is so necessary that honors the connection that we have because it's something that it is what we need to do and we ignore what we need to do instead of being able to listen to ourselves.
And I feel like we honored them in the best way that we could and we were blessed that you got to be there. I kept them. It sounds so weird, but, I kept what was left of my pregnancy in a pickle jar, actually, in the freezer for 2 years.
And it's such a beautiful example of what works for you. and you're
Yeah.
just allowed to do what works for you in grief. Whereas so many people then go to the rule book or what other people will think, or they can't connect into what they need, but they always have something missing. They always have an unfinished process. And I think that makes it really difficult for people to be able to support themselves.
I also just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to let them go. Like sometimes I'd go to the freezer and just like look at them and I just wasn't ready to lose that physical connection.
Yep.
Yet.
Yeah. That totally makes sense to me.
Mm.
I think it's such a journey that it evolves yearly, daily, depending on what our experiences are, depending on where our relationships go, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's why you can be at Coles bawling your eyes out when a song comes on and someone else's grandma's auntie's funeral that you don't even know if that works, but you snot cry because you can't pull it together.
Yeah. Do you want to go into the next part?
I really wanted to touch on, because we have talked about grief and loved ones and all of that. I wanted to connect with the stories, like the little fairy stories. So when Danielle died, she became a fairy for my kids, and particularly for you. I remember your mum saying when she was driving to me, a fairy blew in the window and it flew down across her lap over to you. Was it you? Touch your cheek.
Yeah.
Flew back
And
down.
then flew out the window.
And flew out the window. And so for me, that was the beginning of finding her. It was a way I could find her on earth. And it was from everyone else telling me the fairy stories that made it possible in that way. And I remember when you were getting your makeup done at not your wedding, at your hens. And I walked out, we were in Bali in a villa, and I walked out and up to my feet flew a fairy, a Bali fairy, a little bit different, but you could tell it was a fairy. And it just stopped at me, just stopped. And I was like, oh my God, like she found us here. And so I remember picking it up and bringing it into you and said to you, you're not allowed to cry because getting your makeup done, but
here.
Yeah, here you go. She's come to visit you and she's at your wedding. She's celebrating with you. And for me, it's knowing that we're allowed to hold the space for those beautiful threads and miracles to always be there, because you wouldn't leave. Like I wouldn't leave and not hang out with my kids. You know, she wouldn't leave and not hang out with her best friend. And it's like the connection that your babies have to you wouldn't abandon you. It's giving ourselves permission to find the ways that we honor them, to connect with them, to support ourselves, to see it does forever change us. And who am I because of this now?
Yeah. 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 The fairies have been extremely powerful all throughout my life. Up until my wedding. Like they've always been there. Because she's always been there.
And that's a beautiful thing, I think, for you in looking back. That's always been part of your narrative for you. If you've needed help, that's somewhere that you go. Because as a child, you almost have a magical advantage of the fact that you have someone on your team on this side, if that makes sense. Whereas other kids wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
Not that, but
I think sometimes it's just a reminder, like, that you're not alone. Even though, like, for me, you know, it was about feeling maybe like a sense of abandonment in a way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you guys left me and now what do I do in this life? It was like the fairies became like a reminder, not even necessarily when I was searching for it, or I didn't know that I needed that reminder, but there it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
To say you're not alone.
Yeah, it's an experience that we've got you. So there's a beautiful side as well to this story. So I'm very excited to share this bit. It's like probably one of my favorite bits of your life so far. Apart from you beautiful.
Yeah. Apart from our whole beautiful friendship that we've had.
Yeah.
So obviously my last miscarriage happened on my birthday. And I suppose I got my wish. I, you know, wanted to get my period back so that I could start trying. And now we had this wedding that was being planned. And I sort of said to Ollie, again, controlling everything that I can, I don't want to try I want to try up until July.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to try after that, because we had decided we were going to get married in Bali. We had people traveling from Melbourne, people traveling from Queensland, people traveling from the UK coming to our wedding, that I was like, I don't want to take a baby that's less than 2 months old to Bali. That's too young. So let's not try after July. Lo and behold, it also falls in with having a Pisces baby if I fall pregnant before July. Funny about that. So we tried in the April after my first cycle. And my cycle has always been 28 days to the day. And I get to day 29 and I haven't had a period. And I'm thinking, oh my God, maybe I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, get the pregnancy sticks out. Let's do this together. I was very nervous. Anyway, turned it over and it was blank. There was no double lines. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, how cruel can this life be, in the fact that my period's never late, and yet
Now
it's late now and I'm not pregnant. And so I just said to her, I'm like, this is fucked. Like, I probably went into more anger than anything. Like, why is my body not working all of a sudden? Like, it's worked for had my period since I was 10. Like, you know, we're talking, what's that, 23 years. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So then we get my period the next day, funnily enough, day 30. And then we think, all right, we'll try again. We're now coming into May. You know, we'd find out in June. So we try again, and I get to day 27. And I said to her, I can't wait one more day. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm just going to have to pee on a stick, because I'd rather know that I'm not pregnant than think that I am. Yeah. So I go into the bathroom. At this point, I'm just resolved that I can't control anything. I can't do anything about it. So let's just not live in this fantasy world and just get it over and done with. Sure enough, I pee on the stick and I'm pregnant again. And I'm like, okay, wow, fuck, I didn't think that was going to happen. You know, I started crying and Ollie got quite emotional, and I was like, oh my God, like, we're back here again. Mind you, the last time that I'd found out I was pregnant was, you know, well, nearly a year before, because my miscarriage took so long. You didn't have the miscarriage till March. So I'm like, all right, so I'm pregnant. And I'm like, hey, I waited 2 weeks, messaged the midwives, we're pregnant again, we're hoping for the best. And for some reason, this pregnancy, I was just a lot more relaxed. I was like, you know what? I can't control this. This is completely out of my control. I'm just going to have to really relax into it. I'm going to stop taking my phone to the toilet and checking for blood. I'm going to stop telling people. I'm now not going to tell anybody, not even my mum. I'm going to keep this to me, because if I can keep it to me, maybe I can control the outcome. So I think by
it's also shifting yourself in emotionally in lots of ways, because I think for you being responsible, the more people that you have that know, the more feelings of being responsible for their emotions as well you have. Does it make sense?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Like, I can't support you right now because I'm trying to keep my head above water. But because you're sad, I'm having to console you. And I don't have the capacity for that right now, even though I've always been that friend that would sacrifice myself
it's like
for
I can't,
others.
which is a real beautiful shift in self-awareness to know this is what I've got.
So I think we were like 5 or 6 weeks, and I was at the park with my mum, and she always struggled like seeing me at the park and all the mums with their kids and things like that. And we're sitting there, and of course she makes a comment like something about, I wouldn't have that much butter on my Vegemite toast. And I'm thinking, I'm now been pregnant for, I've been pregnant for 3 weeks and I am sick. I am so nauseous. I'm carrying around a bottle of peppermint essential oil to sniff at every moment. I'm carrying around homeopathics like Nux Vomica, dropping them like they're sugar tablets, but they pretty much are. I am doing everything I can to keep anything down at this point, and I don't need the comments. And I turned around to her, and we were sitting at the park, and I just said to her, all right, I'm pregnant, okay? And she was just like, oh, I'm sorry. And I was like, I wasn't ready to tell you. I didn't want to tell you, like, and because my mum and I are extremely close, and we'd, gone through the miscarriages, and she'd said to me, like, any future baby will just never get the excitement that first baby got, because we're just so protective, and I feel like I can't be excited. And so anyway, it was like, please don't tell anyone. I'm not ready to share it. Like, we're going to wait until we decided we were going to wait until the 16 weeks.
Yeah.
I had chosen to not have any scans done, and we were waiting to see the midwife if we made it to 16 weeks. And again, it was all these ifs: if we make it, if there's no bleeding.
Yes, we found out, like all of the things.
Yeah. I just pretty much tried to go about my days as normal. I was studying, and every day or every week we get a week further, I'd think, okay. And I think the moment that things changed for me was, I'd never been big on due dates. I think they're just like a medical construct that is to keep women in line and timed and things like that. And I remember thinking, just out of interest, am I going to get a Pisces baby? Like, what's this baby's due date going to be? And I did the dates, and it came up as the 2nd of March. So my birthday. And I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
I finished my year, my birth year, or having a miscarriage. And now I'm going to potentially have a baby on my birthday.
12 months later.
Have a baby already by the time my birthday comes, or I'm going to be waiting for the arrival of my baby.
Such a beautiful circle. Like,
And I'm thinking,
it's almost out of our control in the way that it's divine intervention. You know what I mean?
and that's sort of what I leaned into. I was like, maybe this is the universe telling me this time that everything's going to be okay. Just trust the process. And I remember saying to my midwives, I've actually been far more relaxed this pregnancy than I was in any of them. So the 16 weeks comes around, and at the time we were like, no, we're not going to do the Doppler. Like, we were very much trying to not interfere in this pregnancy at all, with fears of causing a miscarriage with ultrasounds or anything like that. And we sort of, Ollie and I sat there, and I said to him, do you want to try and hear the heartbeat? And he was like, I think so. And I thought in that moment, I actually need to hear this heartbeat, because I need to know there's a baby in there. So I laid on the couch at my mum's house, my mum in the room, and the midwife put the Doppler over my belly, and she said, it might take a minute. Actually, sorry, I went to the toilet, and because I had to empty my bladder, and the midwife sort of said to my mum and Ollie, it might take a few minutes. They don't tend to like the sound. It's very loud in there for them. So don't panic if we don't hear it straight away. And I overheard in the toilet, but I was like, I'm just, we're okay. I'm much more relaxed. And I I laid on the couch. She put the Doppler on my stomach, and within a second, there was our baby's heartbeat. And Ollie and I just looked at each other. We burst into tears. We're like, oh my God, like, that's our baby. We FaceTimed my sister. She was still in Hamilton Island at the time. And I said, can you hear, like, that's our baby? And I just was crying and couldn't believe we were actually finally in this moment. Like, oh my God, there's a baby in here, and this baby's going to make it. Yeah. And so I had a wonderful pregnancy, obviously the normal things. I had migraines, I had, illness. And I remember thinking I should be more thankful, like, especially in those early weeks, I should be more thankful that I'm pregnant, because I've had a loss, but I'm so fucking sick, and I'm so fucking sick of waking up sick, that I'm really challenging myself to do this.
Yeah.
So we had decided we were going to have a home birth, and my mum had gone through all her fears of worrying that I'd turned my back on the medical system and I wouldn't go if I needed. And in that moment, I sort of became very much a realist. I was like, not every baby lands earthside. Some babies are born sleeping. I just need to do what's right for me and what I feel most comfortable with. And that's how I'm going to operate. So I listened to my body. I listened to my baby. I didn't count kicks. I just purely went on how I felt. I made it to my due date, which was the 2nd of March, my birthday, and I didn't go into labour. But the next day I was staying at mum's. Ollie was back at home and I was laying in bed and I thought, I think I just heard a pop. I think I'm wetting my pants. And I was like, oh my God, I think my waters have just broken. So I got up, I went to the toilet. Sure enough, I'm sitting there. I'm like, I can't stop weeing. Like, what's going on? And it's 9:30 at night. And my mum's like, oh my God, like, what do you do? Like, normally you'd go to the hospital. And I'm like, no, like, we're not going to the hospital regardless. We're having this baby at home. She's like, do you think you should call Ollie? I think you need to call Ollie. I think you need to call the midwife. And I'm like, Mum, like, it's cool. Like, we're okay. Like, I'm not having contractions. And then I thought, yeah, like, we're trusting this body. Like, this body's done so many amazing things, especially in the last 2 years. Let's just trust in the process. Let's just be patient. So I called Ollie and I was like, I don't know what you want to do. Like, do you want to come over? Do you want to wait? And he's like, nah, it's all right. I'll just come. So he came and had a little bit of contractions through the night, and then they sort of woke up the next morning I didn't really sleep that night. And then I was like, oh, it's fine. Like, the contractions had fizzled out. I'd spoken to my midwife. They were due to come for a visit and they said, look, we'll just wait because there's no point us coming out today to check you and then you go into labour tonight. Let's just wait. So we waited, and yeah, that night I went for a walk with my sister and Ollie and started to get contractions, and Mum and Pete had gone up to St Andrews just in the case Mum's not a great sleeper and so she didn't want to be woken. She'd asked me could I not go into labour in the middle of the night so that I didn't have to wake her. So I was like, how about you just go up there so that you can sleep and we'll just deal with it here. And so, yeah, I pretty much went into labour at maybe 10:30 at night after we got back from a walk. And I said, Dolly, you go to bed. I'll be right. Labored by myself till I think it was 3:30 in the morning. And I was happy. Like, I was so excited. I was so elated. I was like, oh my God, this is coming. Like, this is happening. I'd gotten in the shower a few times, and then I got him up at like 3:30. He came into the room. I don't know why I got him up because I didn't really need him. He kind of just laid on the bed and I was doing my thing very much in my own space, and called the midwife and said things are sort of ramping up. And she said, hop in the shower. If it fizzles out, you're just in early labour. And so I did that. It fizzled out. I thought, oh, you're kidding me. Like, I either need to go full steam ahead or I need to slow down because I either need to sleep or have this baby. And within not even an hour, labour had kicked in and the contractions were coming hard and fast. And we called her again at 6:00 and she's like, what do you want me to do? And I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like, started to doubt myself. And she said to Ollie, have you got the birth pool filled up? And he's like, no. She's like, I think you need to start. And we were like, okay. So I'm trying to like think about that. And luckily Cassidy was here and they're trying to fill the birth pool up, and all of a sudden the water's running cold because I'd had so many showers throughout the night and we didn't even have hot water. They were running kettles and pots, and anyway, the midwife arrived at 6:30 and I think Ollie said to me at one point, are you okay? And my midwife just turned around to him and said, she'll only be okay once she's in the pool. Like, just get that water filled up. And so I got in the pool around 7:30. Cass went off to work, and our beautiful daughter was born in my mum's lounge room where we first heard her heartbeat at 9:21 in the morning on the 5th of March.
So beautiful.
Yeah, it was the most wild experience. I think I said it to my midwife after, I'm just going to book in for C-sections after this. I'm not doing this again, which also obviously changes as you
which nature makes that. Totally.
Yeah, thank God. But yeah, now we have a beautiful 9-month-old daughter that is our entire world. And I literally birthed my best friend. And going back to honouring the previous pregnancies, I mean, it took us 2 years to get our beautiful girl, and I still remembered saying, like, don't speak to me from that place of having a baby now, remember where you were in those moments. And when you came over to meet OC, I think I messaged you and I was like, you need to get here now. And I was just like figuratively sort of saying it. And you're like, I'm on my way. And so that afternoon, I think it was like 34 degrees. And we'd sort of decided we'd had a lotus birth. So we hadn't actually detached the placenta from OC. And I remember 2 days later, the cord had dried and it had fallen off. So we were like, oh, what are we going to do? And that's when we sort of decided where we were going to plant her placenta. We may not be in this house forever, but this is where she was born. We're tied to this earth. And I still had my miscarriages in the freezer at mum's. And it was like, okay, this is the moment. And so OC's name actually came from a Canadian folk band called OC Elliott. And they had this song called This Beautiful Life. And we had my stepdad out there shoveling dirt in blistering heat. My dad was down from Brisbane. You had come over and we all went out on the steps. We took Poppy, our dog, because she was also at the birth. We took her down. And again, another funny coincidence of that was, remember, she had been outside and she had a fairy stuck in her eyebrow, like, and cobwebs. And it's like that fairy was like, I have to stick.
Yeah. It's like, I'm coming too. I'm going to be here as well.
Yeah. And it was just insane.
Yeah.
And so we took OC out the front and we decided to bury the placenta under an angel that came from my nan's garden that she's passed away now. And so Pete dug the hole and I decided to put the miscarriages in the order that they occurred. And I kissed them and I put them back to the earth. And I knew I'd always wanted to put them back to the earth. And I thought, now there's my 2 soul babies and there's that healthy, amazing placenta that I've grown and my babies lived off for the last 9 months. Here they are all back together now in the place where our beautiful daughter OC was born, surrounded by our village from the beginning.
From the beginning. Yeah.
And it was just like this amazing return to self and all the grief. It's not gone. That sadness is not gone. But here we have this beautiful little girl in our life now who is so much her own person and brings us so much joy. But there was a story to get there. And there was a journey that had to occur from a young child myself to now being a mother myself.
And for me too, in adding the beauty of that is your trust in life, but your trust in listening to yourself, trusting your body, trusting the process, trusting how things unfold in the way that they're meant to unfold.
Yeah.
That you see, even in just retelling this story, you see the thread of that. That's why I wanted to pop it in before, of how just incredibly amazing that thread has come through in your life. And it's an absolute honor to you because you've let it happen and you've spoken about it and you've held the space for it and you've not apologized. You didn't try and make it better. You just let your body physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually go through this whole process so much.
Yeah.
And we are in the most beautiful space right now with the most divine little girl. I love,
think, trusting in the process, although it was really hard, it was what I had to do, was to surrender to life. I had to surrender to my circumstances. And what a blessing to begin, I suppose, 2 days later or 3 days later, my 34th year with this beautiful baby, but still honoring the babies before. And, that just choosing to have our wedding in Bali meant that legally we couldn't get married there, but it opened up the opportunity for us to ask you to marry us. And that was such an honor. Like having you sit with us, before the ceremony and talking about, why we were together. And it's just been such a process and our lives have been intertwined for so long. Well, for my whole life.
Yeah.
And, again, it's just about trusting the process. And my nan, well, I think she met the babies and possibly is still looking after our soul babies in that space now, Danielle and Shani. But the other day I'm walking up the stairs with Osi, and behind her statue is these 3 hot pink roses, one giant one and 2 little buds beside it, where my mum has never planted a rose bush. We don't even have hot pink roses in the yard. We have like pale pink. And it's just like, it's that divine, again, it's trusting in the universe and looking and being like, yes, this was all the plan. But we have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the plan, and we do have to go through it. And the what makes it sweet rather than bitter is being able to find the rose, the moments, the fairy, the things that, because again, it is such an alone journey that you again alone go, I get it. I see that. I notice that. I feel that. I can let that in. And I think it's such a powerful part of us being able to stay there supporting ourselves, no matter how hard it gets at times.
Yeah.
What an incredible podcast, man. That's so beautiful.
I'm surprised I didn't cry. Like, there was so many moments I was going to cry, and I was like, no, you can do this.
Me too. I'm like, there was moments I'm like, when I started writing the notes down to go, hey, we're actually going to go there. Because I was like, talk about miscarriages and stuff. And I'm like, your grief story actually doesn't start there. And I can't honor unpacking your story without unpacking your story, which means I've got to now unpack mine. I'm like, this will be interesting. And also didn't cry, but it's because I think there's such a magic in this, and not magic in a way that it's dismissing it, but the beauty of seeing why such special lives are so interconnected. You kind of get in awe of the plan that your soul has in life when you see it from this kind of podcast. And so to be able to share the space with you today, to share both our stories in lots of ways, and particularly your grief story where you've transformed into this divine, self-empowered human that knows how to still listen to herself and trust the process, as well as secretly control everything, which is totally fine. Yeah. Because it's what we do, is such an honor. So I'm so grateful for you, Mans. Thank you so much. And I love you with every cell of my being. Love you forever.
I love you forever. I feel so honored that, our paths did cross, and there's so much that we haven't touched on, but it's like, I look at Tigger, sitting up on Osi's chest of drawers, like that, like knowing that Danielle's always here, but not just Danielle, knowing that you're here. The fairy you gave me for my, altar, from at my mother's blessing, like all of those things that have been around my whole life, and just the relationship that we've grown through. I remember Mum saying you went from being the baby to now you're just like girlfriends.
Like absolutely doing life with you. And there is no ladder for me, and there is no age. It's an honor to be able to be sharing and learning from each other, and being able to drop off insights and new perspectives and different ways to think things, because we need each other to get through life. And so this is why I love it so much. Thank you for listening to this episode of Life Unpacked with Mel Ryan. If someone in your life is going through their own life bomb, please share this episode with them. These stories may be exactly what they need to hear. Remember to follow or subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you feel called to unpack your own story with me, you're always welcome to reach out through my website or social media. Thank you for being part of this space. Be kind to yourself, be curious, and remember the answers you've been looking for have always been inside you. I'll see you at the next episode.